HCAM TV thanks you for watching this presentation. We'd love for you to become a member and use your creativity at our station. Please visit hinghammedia.org or call us at 781-836-5094 if you'd like to learn more.
You are watching Jack and Si's Big Five.
Hello again and welcome to our second edition of Jack and Si's Big Five. Glad to have you back for another show, and I'd like to give a special thanks to all the viewers who checked out our first episode on Hingham Media's YouTube channel. Jack and I appreciate it very much and hope to keep it going. We've reached the All-Star break in the MLB, and meanwhile the NBA free agency period is coming to a close, but Summer League is in full swing, giving us plenty to get into today. So we're going to start with the association, where the hometown Boston Celtics last week shook up their roster, trading once longest tenured Celtics shooting guard Avery Bradley and a 2019 second-round draft pick to the Detroit Pistons for forward Marcus Morris. This trade clears up cap space for eventual signing of Gordon Hayward's four-year, $128 million contract. So Jack, this move is a difficult one for the Celtics, but on the flip side, one that many fans felt was necessary. What's your reaction to the trade?
Well, I think it's important as a Celtics fan to not get too attached to players because it's a business. And while Avery Bradley was the one guy who was there from the Paul Pierce era, and he stayed through the whole rebuild, he was there with Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen even. He went to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Heat. And then he went through the whole rebuild with Rondo and when we were not making the playoffs. And then he made it all the way to this point when it was back in the Eastern Conference Finals. And at this point, we decided to trade him, but we had no other choice at that point because we had Gordon Hayward, who we just brought in, Isaiah Thomas, who wants a max contract, and we just had no room to give Avery Bradley a max contract the next season. So we had to get rid of his salary, and we brought in a good player in Marcus Morris as well, who's a 14 points a game, 8 rebounds, and he'll be a good scoring forward, which is something we needed. So as tough it is to see someone like that go, we needed to do it.
Right. In a perfect world, obviously you'd love to just acquire Gordon Hayward and keep all the pieces, but that money you bring in, there's a pushback to that, and it's forcing one of those guys out, and unfortunately Avery had to be that guy. But I think that Celtics fans need to be a little more optimistic because Avery Bradley did have a career high 16.3 points a game this past season, but he's a guy, as you and me have discussed on many occasions, that doesn't really create shots for himself and doesn't do it for others.
At all.
So as much as he is a guy who used to be just a defensive stopper and an offensive liability, he has grown his offensive game. I think if you told Celtics fans back in that KG Pierce era when he was on the team that he'd be averaging 16 at age 26, a lot of people would doubt that. But he doesn't really create for himself. He doesn't create for others. So I think his scoring can be more easily replaceable than others think.
Definitely.
Now, on the flip side, the struggle that the Celtics are going to have to deal with is that he's, to me, the best perimeter defender in the NBA. Mm-hmm. He's the one guy that can match up with a Kyrie Irving, who's our biggest foe in the East. So his defensive tenacity and aggressiveness, turning defense into offense, a lot of times getting steals and turning to transition offense, is going to be a tough loss for the Celtics. But like you said, Marcus Morris also is a great upgrade in the front court where the Celtics have lacked a scoring void. And we just saw a Morris that had a very well-played series against the Celtics recently. And Marcus maybe not as good, but like you said, a 14-8 guy, a presence in the paint, a big body, and someone that can do damage for us. So although this is a tough pill to swallow, this is one that I think Celtics fans looking forward down the future will say it's one that needed to happen.
Absolutely. And another thing, if you look at it, our backcourt right now is 5'9" Isaiah Thomas, and it was 6'2" Avery Bradley,
right.
Which even at 6'2", that's undersized for a point guard, and he's a shooting guard. So if you look at the best teams around the league, like Curry 6'3", Thompson 6'7", they're both bigger guards, and I think we needed to get a bigger in the backcourt. So now we have some young guys like Gordon Hayward, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. They could all possibly play the two. So our lineups will be much bigger from now on, which I think is a big plus going forward. We'll have much more versatility on the perimeter.
Here's the interesting thing about this move is that it's a cap space ploy, right? So the Celtics have now opened up more cap space. This is a clear indicator to me that Danny Ainge sided with signing Isaiah Thomas at the end of this year as opposed to Avery Bradley. Both of them were going to ask for big money, and the Celtics just simply couldn't pull that off. So it's very interesting to me because Celtics fans seem to be very swung on Isaiah Thomas's future, and immediately after the deal happened, Isaiah actually came out and said, "Back up the Brinks truck."
Right.
As in, this money's coming in for me. He's probably going to be expecting $30 million a year over who knows how many years his new contract will be, but it'll be very interesting to see where Isaiah Thomas's future goes as a result of this Avery Bradley move.
Absolutely. It seems like the future's more clear now, though, because obviously we had to pick between the two. That's what it came down to, and now we know which one we want to go with going forward. So we have our point guard of the future, and now we have 3 great wing players that can all play the 2. And it looks like going forward, maybe Jaylen Brown will start at the 2. We'll have a big lineup, play Hayward at the 3. We'll still have Smart coming off the bench, so we'll definitely have a lot of options there. More versatility on defense, which is something we definitely didn't have before. So I think it's a good move, and it had to be made.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Avery Bradley's rise came from a Ray Allen injury where he was forced to play postseason minutes back in 2013. Now this departure is kind of a similar cycle for Jaylen Brown to, listen, there's a void here. You can play the position. It's your second year. You've got a full NBA season under your belt. Let's see where you can go from here. And I think based on summer league play, there's a lot to look forward to for Jaylen Brown. But the one thing that kind of contradicts the Avery Bradley not creating scoring for himself and others that Celtics fans may say is that Marcus Smart doesn't do the same. So he might be a fill-in option as well, and he doesn't really provide the same as Avery, so that's going to be very interesting to see.
Most definitely. And the last thing here is I think you could see Avery Bradley, he's in his prime now, and he's maxed out all his look at how far he's come. He's maxed out his offensive skill set, it looks like, at this point. He's not creating for others. He's a good shooter, but what else is he doing offensively? It looks like Jalen's ceiling is way higher than that, so especially with 5 inches on him. So I think definitely we have the right piece going forward at that position for the future.
He's the better athlete as well.
Absolutely. And then, so moving forward, tonight's game in Miami marks the MLB's 88th All-Star Game. And a topic that comes up every year around this time is whether the league that wins the All-Star Game should obtain home field advantage in the World Series. Simon, is this something going forward you think should continue, or do you think the best team should always be rewarded with the home field advantage in the World Series?
This is a tough question because as a sports fan, you always want the best product of an All-Star Game. And this rule that the winning side gets home field advantage, it motivates the players in this All-Star Game much more to play better and put on a better show for the fans, which is fantastic. Having said that, I think it's unfair when you have a team going into a World Series that, say, is 10 or 15 games better, right, that they can't set the tone on their home field in games 1 and 2. They can't have a potential game 7 on their home field. That's a tough thing for the home team to have because of essentially an exhibition game. It is a collection of the world's greatest players in baseball, but I think it should stick. Other sports stick with this rule traditionally, where if you have the better record, you should have home field advantage. And I think it's especially critical in baseball because this is an 162 game season where in certain spurts you may lose fans' interest pretty easily because it's so long. You can just check scores and get by easily because they play it on a day in, day out basis for so many months, so many games. So why would you not, as the MLB, want to create more interest in the regular season? How interesting would it be if you had 2 teams who looked just head and shoulders above everyone else at around the 100-win mark fighting for a better record to see who would get that home field? I think that would create more interest for the fans and make the game of baseball more exciting heading into October.
Absolutely, and I think it's just a difficult concept because it's been this way for so long.
Correct.
But if you look at it, every other sport, basketball, it's just like an intramural game. Like it's just a show basically.
Right.
Baseball is like the one sport that the players come out and have to compete to earn something, which I think is pretty cool. But at the same time, I feel like it's a team sport, so you're playing 162 games, and the best team should earn the right to play in the World Series on their home field for 4 games. So going forward, I do think they should change it at some point, but as of now, I think it's a good tradition to keep. But if you look at it, 13 out of the past 15 years, the same league has won, which means the same league has home field advantage in the World Series. So if the best team is not who wins the All-Star Game, it's a little unfair to that team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think baseball makes this implemented this rule because unlike basketball and football, it's a lot more physical and you have a lot more high injury risk. So you can't really ask those stars mid-season, especially in basketball where that's mid-season, football is postseason. But you can't really ask those guys to play your hardest when you have games coming up and you're needed. Baseball, it's less physical, much less physical sport, so you're definitely able to get away with competing harder in an exhibition game.
Definitely. But another thing that's weird about this is you're asking the coaches for each of these staffs to go out and try to win this game as best as you can. But if you're doing that, then you wouldn't be playing every single person on your roster, which they are in the MLB All-Star game. Like, the best pitcher's only going to pitch 2 or 3 innings. So if you're going all out to win, you're going to pitch your best guy 7 or 8 innings. So it's really like you're playing to win, but you're not doing everything you can to
you
win.
have to get everyone involved.
Exactly.
You have
so
to
it's
respect
just
the selection.
Definitely. So it's definitely an iffy rule that I think they should change going forward.
Yeah, certainly. All right, we're going to move on to our third topic, going back to the association. The NBA Summer League is underway, and its excitement is at an all-time high. The fan intrigue is larger than ever, so much so that the recent Celtics-Lakers Summer League game from Las Vegas last Saturday night was the first sellout Summer League game in the Summer League history. But Jack, amongst all the Summer League noise and storylines thus far, about a week in, who has impressed you the most?
Not to be biased here at all, but to me the Celtics have been the biggest storyline so far. If you look at all their young guys, Jaylen Brown is only going into his second year. Jason Tatum, they look like a tandem that could be horrifying to the league going forward at the 2 and 3. Jaylen with his athleticism, versatility, defense, and he's looking a lot more polished on the offensive end right now. And Tatum looks unbelievable for a 19-year-old. He's so poised. He's already had a game winner. And he has a skill set that reminds me of like a Paul Pierce, Carmelo Anthony, someone who can score from mid-range, inside, outside, and he seems to have no fear out there at all. So far to me, the Celtics have looked very good in these few games.
Yeah, I agree. Jason Tatum was the one guy that I had in mind as well. I love the quote that he said after the Lakers game where he said he felt like he was at Duke playing with North Carolina, which just shows to me even though there's a step up, which is hard for anyone to jump to physically wise, and just being in brighter lights, he's really showing out. And to me, he's averaging what, like 27 and 11, and also 3 steals. So he's using his length and big body on the defensive end to create plays. And particularly, I watched the whole Celtics-Lakers Summer League game, and the difficulty of shots that he's hitting. He's not, he's given a little more offensive freedom than he would in the NBA, right. And obviously we have to take Summer League with a grain of salt because some of the guys on the court simply won't even be on the court in actual NBA play. But I think it's good to see that he's hitting difficult shots, and it seems like they're not coming with ease. Like there's good defense being played on the other end, and he is using his size, using his body, using his skill on the offensive end to just make the play that the defender can do nothing about.
Definitely. I think it's also really encouraging that they've worked together so well, those two, because they're both going to be playing 30-plus minutes probably next season. And one of the things that really impresses me about Jaylen is right when the season ended, the coaching staff actually didn't want him to play because of how well he played this season. He said, no, he's a competitor. He wants to go play Summer League too. So he's taking on the leadership role, and even though he's only 20, he's helping out these younger guys already, like Tatum, taking him under his wing and really helping him out so far.
Yeah, I agree, certainly. Yeah, I think it's very interesting that, you have Jaylen Brown coming off kind of a quiet rookie season, maybe quieter than most Celtics fans respected, but these two are in the same boat at being the number 3 pick and having a little doubt amongst fans as to whether they can perform. And I think they're both together as a tandem thriving off that and using it as a motivation tool, certainly.
Definitely, and I think you're also seeing some flashes of the way the combination is going to work, with Jaylen being much more of the defensive guy, a little more versatile, but he's developing a scoring skill set, but Tatum looks like he's going to be the go-to scorer of the future, and I could see him being like a 25 points a game type of guy, Jaylen being an 18 to 20, so I think they're going to be a lethal combo on the wing for years to come, and especially with Hayward being there right now as an established veteran ahead of him, it's got to help them out in practices competing against someone like that. So
You mentioned the Paul Pierce comparison. I think it's very true because we saw Pierce kind of elevate his game gradually as his years progressed, and I see the same thing with Jason Tatum, and it's scary when you think he's playing this well and he's only going to get better, and he's so young, he's so raw, and the future looks very bright. So certainly a lot to look forward to, and definitely been an exciting Celtics summer league period
Definitely.
thus far.
Another thing about him, he surprised me a little bit with his length and athleticism. I saw him more as like a 6'7", a little chubby, but it looks like he's really slimmed out a little bit. He made it even grown another inch, so it looks like he can play 2 through 4, which could be really helpful, both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, the 4 certainly place where the Celtics have had a void on the offensive end, so it'd be great if he could step in there and play in that role.
Definitely. Moving forward now, the Red Sox currently sit atop the American League East with a record of 50-39. However, the Yankees are not too far behind and are a clear playoff team with a lot of young guys that are up and coming. Simon, what do you think the Red Sox need to do the rest of the way to maintain this division lead and position themselves for a big playoff run?
Well, as you mentioned, the AL East is very strong. Not just the Yankees, but the Rays, who we just had a tough series with. They're 3 games back. The AL East is actually the only division in the MLB where every team 1 through 5 has at least 40 wins. So it's it's a division with a lot of depth and no bottom dweller teams. But I think for the Sox, the biggest thing is starting pitching inconsistency. We saw Rick Porcello coming off a Cy Young year this year. So far this season has a 4-11 record and a 4.75 ERA. So he's simply just going through a slump, struggling. How much that has to do maybe with Chris Sale's addition and him not coping that well with being the number 2 as opposed to number 1 ace. That may be affecting him mentally. So Porcello's a question mark for me, and David Price, simply because he hasn't been healthy. He's inconsistent, a little erratic as well, and hasn't gotten many starts under his belt. Chris Sale this year looks fantastic, and it just so happens that when he starts, he doesn't get very much run support. But he's been very sharp, starting tonight in tonight's All-Star game. The only pitcher in MLB history to start back-to-back years for 2 different teams. So he's very impressive. He's certainly a guy who you like as your ace going into a postseason. And then on the flip side, if you look at the bats between Benintendi, Jackie Bradley Jr., Bogarts, Mookie Betts, and Dustin Pedroia, 5 guys that all between them are batting between 280 and 300. Those are the stars of the offense. Those guys are showing out, and I think it's a good balance because you have young guys like Benintendi, Betts, and Bogarts, but you also have a guy like in Pedroia who was on the 2007 World Series team. So he brings you a lot of experience that'll instill to the young guys and help them as they make a postseason run. But yeah, I just look at the division as, you like where the Sox are being 3 games up, but the Yankees are not far behind, the Rays are not far behind, and it's certainly a division where if you slip up here in the second half of the year with not many games left, you could find yourself trailing. So I think the pitching inconsistency, the depth, and the experience factor is another thing that I didn't mention, because as we saw last year was really the first rodeo of the postseason for the young guys that I mentioned, and they got swept by Cleveland. So they haven't really experienced success other than a few guys who may have been on the 2007 roster have had success elsewhere on teams. But overall, other than those 2 kind of murky areas, I like where the Red Sox are right now at this
Definitely. Going forward for the division chase, I think the biggest thing here is we forget sometimes baseball is such a long season, 162 games, that for these young guys, the last couple of years, guys like Bradley, even Betts a little bit, and obviously Bogarts have tailed off towards the end of the season. Bogarts was 320 for most of the season last year with his average, and by the end he was under 300. So one of the things is just mentally being prepared to finish the full season, staying healthy, stuff like that. And then the other thing is, yes, as you mentioned, pitching. We have 3 pitchers that are some of the more talented pitchers in the league, with Price, who's been very inconsistent in the playoffs especially, Porcello, who won the Cy Young last year, and Sale, who's probably the best pitcher in baseball right now, if not Kershaw. But and especially in the bullpen, Kimbrel is having another great season. So we have 4 great pitchers, but our inconsistency has definitely plagued them thus far. So we want going forward them to be at the top of their game, especially with this close division race. And the other thing is, yes, the inexperience. You look at Mookie Betts, Bogarts, even Bradley. These are 3 of our stars that have never won.
Ramirez has also been playing well offensively.
Yeah, he's been playing well offensively lately. But if you look at these guys, they haven't won too many playoff games other than Dustin Pedroia, really.
Right.
So we need to get this division lead and hopefully get an easier series with home field advantage, get a couple wins under their belt going forward, and that way it'll be definitely a little easier going forward as opposed to playing a team like the Indians in the first round and going to Cleveland. So we'll see how that happens.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Craig Kimbrell also. Like you brought him up, 23 saves this season. It's such a huge weight lifted off your shoulders when you know you have a guy who can close you out in those close games in the postseason, and he's certainly a guy that can do that. And also Joe Kelly and Matt Barnes, those guys in the bullpen lead the bullpen. They're very sharp in relief as well. So.
Definitely. And another big thing that's coming up here is the trade deadline. And we have a good field for the most part, especially our lineup. But if you look at third base, it's been so inconsistent. Sandoval goes out with an injury. Devin Marrero hitting like 200. So we definitely, if possible, be able to ship out a couple of these guys, try to acquire a third baseman to make that lineup a little more complete. But other than that, the rest of the field looks good. The staff looks good. So we should be in good position to win the division.
Yeah, the division certainly. But if you look around the AL, the Astros are red hot. They just had I believe, right before the All-Star break, the biggest win margin in MLB history, the 19-1 victory, and they're just scorching hot. The Indians, they had a tremendous run last year and still have a sour taste in their mouth of blowing that 3-1 lead in the World Series, so they'll be coming for blood. And there's certainly a lot of heavy competition for the Red Sox in the East outside of the division.
Definitely. So going for the title as opposed to trying to get a wild card is going to be huge to get that home field advantage, because if one of these teams like the Indians, who struggled a little bit this year, if they sneak in, we don't want to see them in the first round. So we definitely want to get the best seed possible.
Certainly. All right, we're going to move on to our final topic of the day. We just wrapped up a very busy NBA free agency period, to say the least, involving plenty of player movement. Jack, with the draft in the rearview mirror, free agency coming to a close, and plenty of blockbuster trades in that mix as well, give me your biggest winner and loser from this NBA offseason period.
Well, I think there's a couple here. My two biggest winners would be the Celtics and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think some people look at the Rockets as being the biggest winner with the Chris Paul acquisition because he's the biggest name, but I don't think that fit is very good. I think for Oklahoma City, bringing in a guy like Paul George who can play off the ball with a guy like Westbrook who's going to play on the ball a lot. George is a 39% three-point shooter this year, and he's at his best when he's catching and shooting, and Westbrook's a great creator. So I think that's a great addition. I think they'll be in the top 2 or 3 in the West this year. And with the Celtics, I think the Hayward thing was huge, because if we didn't pick him up, we were going to stay at the same level we were, probably a 2 or 3 seed, and we overachieved last year. So I don't even know if we would have got to that point, because he was really the biggest thing we got in this offseason. Losing Bradley would have been really tough, but we were able to bring him in, and I think that brought us much more of a threat to the Cavaliers. We still need another piece for sure, but I think Gordon Hayward, losing Bradley and replacing him with a guy like Markieff Morris, our front court is a lot more legit now. So I think that's a huge step in the right direction, especially with Cleveland not making any acquisitions. Looks like I think we'll take them to a 6 or 7 game series. And going to the biggest loser, I would go with the Atlanta Hawks. You traded Dwight Howard, who you just signed for 4 years. You traded him for virtually nothing.
Right.
You lose Tim Hardaway Jr., who averaged 15 points a game this year. And you lose your starting point guard last year, Jeff Teague. So the whole thing is just... Millsap too this year, So it looks like they might be the worst team in the league next year.
Yeah. For me, I think it'd be easy to say the biggest winner is the Golden State Warriors, retaining a team that went 16-1 in the postseason, re-signing everyone, and also added some role players. But for the sake of, I'll throw out a team who is building in championship contention. For me, that's the Minnesota Timberwolves. They stole the show draft night with the unexpected trade, acquiring Jimmy Butler, having to give away Zach LaVine, who was a good player, but coming off ACL surgery, who knew where his health was going moving forward. Chris Dunn, who seemed like a nice player, but you're not too upset to give him up. And that 7th pick, obviously. So I think the addition of Jimmy Butler, pairing him with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, that's a nice big 3 you have there. And Jimmy Butler is a veteran. He's been through at least some playoff run that the Timberwolves simply have not been. So I think he'll be very good for those surrounding players. And in addition to Butler, you traded Ricky Rubio and got a first-round pick for it. And for me, the Utah Jazz are going to fall off this year, 1, because they lost a lot, and 2, because the West got a lot stronger. So that's a draft pick that you'll probably have in the lottery. and Ricky Rubio wasn't doing much for you in Minnesota at the point guard position. So I think all around two ways, that's a fantastic trade for them. And then lastly, the signing of Jamal Crawford. He's getting up there in age. He's very old, but he signed a 2-year deal with them. He's a guy off the bench that can just be a spark plug for you offensively. We know how special he is with his handle and his shooting ability. So I think the Timberwolves all around are in a very good position in a tough West. I mean, they haven't been to the playoffs since KG won MVP. So this will be different for them now that they have expectations, but I see their ceiling as being in that 3rd or 4th spot in the West. I think they're that good. And my second team that I had in mind for a winner is the Sacramento Kings. They drafted 4 guys who are from college basketball blue bloods who have winning character and a winner's mentality. De'Aaron Fox, Justin Jackson, Harry Giles, and Frank Mason. And those are all 4 savvy players, guys that want to win, guys that are unselfish. And usually the Kings leave you scratching their head with their front office decisions, but this time around certainly looked like they made the right choices. And then I think signing 2 veterans like George Hill and Zach Randolph were also good additions to a team that's obviously in the dumps, and people figured, where are you going once you trade away Boogie Cousins for a bag of chips? But now they seem to be at least slowly rebuilding and sort of have some direction again.
I agree. With the Kings, it's actually, for once, it looks like they have some direction with where they're going. But when I look at who actually made the biggest splash, I look at teams that want to be really aggressive and from where they were trying to become what they were to a contender right away. And I look at the teams like the Rockets were clearly trying to do that. The Timberwolves getting Jimmy Butler went from probably one of the worst teams in the league to maybe a top 5 in the West. And I think the Thunder, this was huge because Westbrook's a free agent for next season. They really wanted to make a move like this to convince him to stay. So I think that was a huge deal for them to be aggressive like that. And now it's a place free agents might want to come going forward. So I think those teams definitely were the biggest. But you're right, the Warriors also are retaining guys like Kevin Durant, Iguodala, Livingston again, and these guys are taking less money than they should be too. So it's
Durant taking $10 million under the max is so out of the blue.
So it also allows them to bring in more players as well. So that's a huge thing going forward. But I did feel it was obvious that those guys would be coming back, at least a couple of them. So yeah,
for this year at least.
For this year at least, yeah. So I agree with you. And also, Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox is not the type of player they've had at all in the last couple of years. So someone that's actually smart player, seems to care about winning, and a good attitude. I think that's going to be huge for them.
Yeah, fantastic athlete. I didn't get to my loser. I mentioned the Utah Jazz. They're my biggest loser for this offseason. You lose your cornerstone, your franchise for nothing, and Gordon Hayward essentially led you to where most people thought their ceiling would be as a 4th seed in the West, got to the 2nd round, which is very impressive for that roster. But now they make the Ricky Rubio trade, and he's a guy who likes to distribute, make others better, but I don't really know outside of Rudy Gobert whose game he's gonna elevate. You re-sign Joe Ingles, who is just an average player. I mean, outside of Gobert, you went from, especially as the West got better, the Jazz went from a team that was a 4 seed, at least in the thick of things in the West. Now they seem to be in the lottery for years to come, unfortunately, as a result.
Most definitely. And another team we haven't mentioned yet, when we talk about the Jimmy Butler trade, how about the Chicago Bulls?
Yeah.
They are probably going to be one of the worst teams in the league as well. They lose Jimmy Butler, didn't really get much in return, and Dwayne Wade had just opted in, and now it looks like he wants to leave there too. So if they buy him out, they're really going to be in for a huge rebuilding process. They just got rid of Rajon Rondo, so all their big names are gone, and their coach doesn't get along with his players. The front office doesn't get along with the coach, so they're a huge mess right
the
now.
Bulls seem to really have no direction. They seem to have a coach that was more suited for the college game, seem to be a little overwhelmed in the NBA game, and I don't think that highly of Lauri Markkanen, their draft pick. He's a nice guy, big man who can step out and shoot the 3, but I just don't see him bringing much to a Bulls team, especially given the makeup. And Zach LaVine, as we said, has injury questions. Chris Dunn hasn't done much, really only more of a defensive presence. So I definitely agree that the Bulls are in a bit of shambles right now and a team that's not going to be very good looking forward.
Absolutely. So thanks everyone for tuning in today. It was a great second show. Thanks for everyone's feedback on the first show, and we hope to have more feedback going forward. You can check us out at the YouTube channel for HCAM, and we will see you next week. Thank you.
You are watching Jack and Size Big 5.